Hello, 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 hello. Hey, I am standing here in downtown Guthrie, America. I just wanted to introduce this next video that you're about to watch, which is really a podcast, but I've been taking my podcast, putting them in video format as well. As you know, I'm still learning the game on editing and recording and audio and all of this stuff, and I'm having a blast doing it. But the important thing to me is getting people's stories out there. And so today, I'm sharing with you a conversation that I had with Lance Lang, and Lance Lang is the founder of Hope is Alive, which is an organization that brings hope to those who are in the struggle of addiction. And by the time that they get to Hope is Alive, they are in recovery mode. And so I was thankful that Lance sat down with me. We talked about how he comes up with the titles of his books. He is the author of 4 books. We talk about how he started Hope is Alive. We talk about systems, just a whole bunch of great stuff that I believe that you can learn from. I think this will be inspirational for some of you. And also, I hope that you connect with Lance, because Lance is doing amazing things. He and his team are doing amazing things serving people at Hope is Alive. So here we go. Get ready for it. Watch this. Well, hey, I am so glad, as you heard in the introduction, that I got my man Lance Lang here today, and I'm so excited about him jumping in the conversation with me and kind of getting his story out there. And I'll just ask you, Lance, share the kind of work that you do with the world.
Sure. Well, first off, I'm so thankful to be in Guthrie, America.
Yeah.
A beautiful drive-in this morning. Love being downtown Guthrie. With the man of Guthrie.
I don't know about that.
So it's a beautiful day to be here. So a little about the work that Hope is Alive does. I got clean and sober ahead of April 27th of 2011. So coming up one day at a time on 8 years. And a couple years into my sobriety, really wanted to take what I had been given through treatment and through the program and all kinds of different things, and just really just give it back to other guys. That's how it started. Just wanted to give what was given to me away, and just felt this calling on my life to work with other recovering drug addicts, and didn't know exactly what that would look like, but that's what I knew I wanted to do. And so the work began like that. We opened a home up that would be able to receive men that were coming out of treatment centers throughout Oklahoma and really across the country, and that's how Hope is Alive began, with one home and 5 guys, and just working to radically change the lives of those guys, really in all areas of their lives. And from there, the past 6 years, it's really grown, it's exploded, and we can talk about all those reasons why. But at the end of the day, today Hope is Alive Ministries has 13 homes in 4 cities in 3 states, and serving over 120 residents, helping them radically change their lives.
Wow, that's awesome. So, you are what's your role in all of this?
So I'm the executive director. Titles are an interesting thing, but that's what I am. At the end of the day, it probably compares to a president or a CEO and other people's business lives. But I'm probably the main vision caster. I'm the main partnerships person, the chief fundraiser.
Yeah.
And then helping to build right now the systems and behind the scenes office type stuff, to help facilitate some explosive growth going on within our ministry. So
that's nice. So I'm what's going through my head is I'm imagining you as a kid, then you're in high school, and in high school, that's the time when everybody is trying to, I'm assuming here, kind of move you to college.
Sure.
And the traditional thing is, what are you going to do when you get out of college? First of all, what are you going to do when you get to college? What's going to be your major and all that stuff? And I'm sure you went through that in life.
Yes.
And now you're the CEO of Hope is Alive,
Yeah.
which is where you're bringing in people and helping them recover from addiction. What was it in high school that you thought you would be
That's
doing
so funny.
now?
I've not thought about that in a long time. I had this. I think sometimes people pick majors in high school just because they think it's a cool thing.
Yes,
They have no idea. Certainly, I had no idea. just the way it would sound interesting when they introduced me at a church graduation thing or something like that, I chose international business.
Okay.
Yes, I'm going to be an international businessman. Listen, I cannot speak another language to save my life. I've never been able to learn even the basics of another language. I'm horrible at that, but for some reason, I thought that was a cool thing.
That was the way to go.
Exactly. So I'm going to attend college, and he's going to major in international business. Yeah, that did not happen.
I just think about that, and I guess it's not even so much of going to college, but just when you're in high school, what you think that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
You know what?
Sure.
How many? I don't know how many years that is from you now.
Yeah.
From then till now, but
I
you
think-
never would have thought this.
No, I would have thought this by any stretch of the imagination. You look back at yearbooks and what people voted you on, what they thought you would be. I think mine was a politician. They thought I'd be a politician, which maybe in some ways I am.
Some ways,
I don't
yeah.
know. But that was one of those things. But yeah, I think I didn't know it at all what I wanted to do. I think there was some business things inside of me.
Yeah.
I can remember me and my buddy putting together, some T-shirts and selling the whole school T-shirts in high school. So we were very entrepreneur minded even then.
Okay.
I sold cars on the weekends when I was a junior and a senior in high school.
Oh, okay.
So every Saturday after football games, I'd get up, beaten up, and roll into the dealership Saturday morning and sell cars all day.
Yeah.
I sold cars all summer. So I was very much a worker.
Yeah.
From very early on. From 12, I was in horse stalls, cleaning up stalls at different people's farms around Pryor, Oklahoma, where I grew up. So I always had that in me to work and to make money, if you will, and to be successful in that line. But I think also when I look back at my life and growing up, I did a lot of this in treatment because I've done a lot of therapeutic things. I've looked back on my life. I also realized that there were a ton of times where I really loved connecting and helping people. I can remember times where my heart was stirred for those that might have mental handicaps or special needs in different ways. And those things were those opportunities. I remember back to, God really working on my heart, connecting me with folks. Basically, they needed a second chance, or the underdogs in life, if you will. And so those things I harken back to a lot when I think about the work that I get to do today.
Yeah.
That there was always something inside of me that wanted to help people.
Yeah, yeah. So selling cars on the weekend, selling cars in the summer, horse stalls.
Oh yeah,
cleaning horse stalls.
So they called me a pilot.
What is
So I would pilot over here, and then I'd pilot over there. the manure, if you will. Yes. So I was a pilot.
a pilot?
Yeah.
That's really good. Now, what was it that you think students saw in you when they were calling you a politician?
I think because I was very connected to a lot of different groups of people.
Okay.
And so, and I could also encourage and push and captivate and vision cast people to do something.
Yeah.
Sometimes not always the good things or the right things.
Yeah.
But I was a mover of people.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Which is, so I think now the interesting thing, you said international business.
Yes.
But there's this thing that was happening in your life, even at that point, that I feel like now translates to everything that you're doing now. You're not a politician, but you're now trying to win over different groups of people.
Absolutely.
And trying to get them to move forward with you.
That's
Which that's what most politicians
Yes.
do. And then the hustle of starting something.
Yes.
Piling manure, really speaks to okay, I can hustle, I can get something done.
Yes.
And so it all kind of translates to what you're doing now, even though, and I don't see roles so much as, CEO and all that. I just think everyone plays their part.
Yes.
And I think the part that you play is that connector of people.
Yeah, that's right. I think it's so interesting now where we are to look back at who I meet with every day, just the diversity of the groups. And I'm so thankful for it. I love that shakeup. I love the difference of meeting with you, a connector in the community, someone that's a leader in the church. And then I'll go this afternoon, have a lunch with a pastor, and then I'll have a coffee with former CEO of one of the largest oil companies here in Oklahoma. And then tonight I'll be in a life group and then filming. I mean, just all the diversity of who I get to be involved with today is a really, really neat thing. Yeah. And I think that speaks to kind of what I do as far as addiction goes. It touches everybody. It doesn't discriminate whatsoever. But I don't think God wastes anything either. And so he uses all those talents and abilities that we grew up with and lets us use it when we're willing to say yes.
Yeah, for sure. Now we understand like a big part of your success is connecting with people.
Yeah.
The storytelling, the vision casting. But you said earlier about putting together systems.
Yeah.
Speak to that. What does that look like for you? What kind of systems are you currently trying to build? Maybe give us an example of a system that you already have in place that has allowed for you to be successful as an organization.
Man, so many systems, and I'll tell you, this is an area where I'm weak, and so I think one thing I'd speak to the audience is that don't wait to step into those areas where you're weak, because if you wait, then you're too late.
Yeah.
And so I think I've done that because I wasn't secure in how to build a system or what that even means or what it looks like, what an ambiguous term,
yes,
you know.
Yes.
And you know, I'm a vision guy, and so sometimes details are tough for me, and I want to be out with people, and so carving out time to whiteboard a system is kind of frustrating. It makes my brain hurt thinking about it. But also, you can't have one without the other. If you're building something successful that's going to be reproducible, you want it to last. You want people to have the same feelings and association with it in Oklahoma as they do in North Carolina or whatever other city that you might be in. You've got to have a system behind it. And so one of the biggest things that we did within our homes is we built a full handbook that goes through every single situation you can think about that could happen in one of our mentoring homes. And it outlines what to do, who to call, what the process looks like. And one of the things that really helped us kind of simplify this is just the idea of checklists.
Yeah.
You know, that's a system.
Yeah.
So what do you do when this happens? Well, you just walk through the 5 checklists. You do 1, then you do 2, then you literally check the boxes.
Yes.
And that helps people understand, here's the system of what I need to do. And I do this every single time this certain thing happens.
Yeah.
And so we've done that on the program side, and now we're doing that on our donor development and retention side as well. What happens when a gift is made online? And it takes you through the entire system, A, B, C, D, D, all the way down. Here's a checklist of what you do, how we thank people, what goes into that. And then that kind of kicks off another process of how many times we want to interact with that donor throughout the rest of the year. And so I think it's just grabbing a situation in your business or in your organization or church and then asking yourself, what do I want to see happen from there?
Yeah.
And building it around that and making it really easy for your team and your employees to say, after I do 1, I do 2, I do 3, and I just check the boxes all the way down. So for me, that helps me simplify it and be confident enough to step into building systems. So.
That's good. That's good. Have you heard of autopilot?
I haven't.
So autopilot allows for once somebody like signs up for something, a donation or whatever, you can build these different drips.
Yes.
And so they get an email, they get, you know, an email for this and that and this. And so we recently started trying to use that for an organization company called Made Possible By that I work with. And so autopilot is just something good.
That sounds great. Those are the things right there.
Yeah.
And, you know, reading a ton about organizational life cycles and getting yourself to basically that phase where things are working naturally. And that only happens through systems.
Yeah.
And so not only are we doing that, we're looking at a lot of HR systems, a lot of financial things. We're a nonprofit, and so we're walking through our first stages of audits and different things like that.
Yeah.
Just the stage and place that we're at in our organization, folks are asking for that more. And so every single day, it's just opening another situation and building a system behind it. And it can get tiring.
And then, yes, especially when it's not your thing.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
And so talking about the things, you and I have talked about who are the right people to surround you have this win. You want this organization to thrive and be successful. You know your place in this. So now you got to start thinking about who are these right people I need to place around me in order to continue to move forward.
That's right.
Knowing who you are and knowing that you need these systems, now HR.
Yeah.
What are you doing until you get those right people, or have you already found those right people? What does that look like?
No, that's
you?
a great question because I'm in the middle of that right now. And again, when in areas where people are insecure or they're scared of it, typically they won't start peeling back the onion to find out what's there. And that's what happened to me on HR. I kept thinking, well, I've got to do it all myself. I've got to figure this out. I got to hire somebody to come in and write a handbook and all this stuff. And that's just not true. There are people that do this for a living.
Yeah.
They're called consultants.
Yeah.
And they'll help you. And that was just kind of a mind blow to me. Maybe I'm ignorant and I didn't realize it. But we've been able to stumble into a lot of different contract or consultant relationships that have helped us not have to take on the full weight of a full-time employee.
Yeah.
And have got us where I think we need to be. And then eventually, as we grow and add more people, we might have to add that role. But we just came across a consultant that was through, and again, people and connecting and a network that we felt really good about. And she had a background in nonprofit work. And she's helped us kind of build this system really for a pretty low rate. And it gets us there a whole lot faster. And without a lot of brain work on my end. Of course, I'm going to go back in and tweak it and make it our own and write some language around it. But it allowed us to jump, from 2 to 10 like that. Yeah. And we were there. And so I've done that on HR. We've, for the longest time, used contract videographers, contract website. We've brought in web and all that kind of in-house now. But I think early on, any kind of organization that's starting a business, you look for those partnerships, those strategic partnerships where you can look to pay, a monthly rate, but keep your stuff fresh. Yeah. Or somebody can help you come in and build a system for you that knows what they're doing in that specific field. You don't have to know it all. Yes. Or write it all. Yeah. Or figure it all out. Yeah. And man, that's a huge weight off shoulders of somebody like me.
For sure, and that's great. And I always tell people whenever I do a go in workshop or talk about the right people, it's like sometimes you got to pay to have those right people in your life. Yes. It's not always something where it's going to be a friend or a family member. Yeah. Sometimes it's literally saying, "Hey, I'm going to pay somebody who has this skill set in order for me to get further down the road." And so good. That's good.
A huge part of our story is finding the right people, and then have them casting the vision to them and asking them to come along with the ride with you and journey with you and help build it. Yeah. And what I found is a lot of people really enjoy helping to build something that's exciting. Yeah.
No, it is.
And they'll join with you.
Yeah. And it feels good.
Than they normally would.
If it's the right vision.
If it's, if it makes sense and you find the right person who's captivated by it, or maybe they've been touched by it or impacted. So
what are some tips on casting vision that you would give someone?
Well, I think you're trying to stir the heart. But you need the head as well. And so I think I always do a blend of trying to understand who my audience is. And so if I'm working with somebody that maybe hasn't been directly impacted by what I do, I try to paint the picture of what's going on in the state, in the country. This is what this is impacting in a broad way. And this is how it's impacting your home. And I'll walk them through that. And then, people's hearts are moved and stirred by stories. And so I'm telling stories all day, every day. I thought about this yesterday. I have probably told the story of Hope is Alive thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Yeah. And I'm doing it right now. Yeah. And I'll do it again this afternoon. Yeah. So you've got to be sold out to the story of whatever your business is or organization, and be willing to tell that to anyone that will listen. But you've got to be willing to pull the head and the heart in together. Yeah. And that's what I've been taught by a lot of different people, and make sure that you're understanding your audience first and foremost, and then you pull the head and the heart in together.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And would you say that you've gotten better over the years of doing it? And how did you know that you were getting better?
I think we've seen exponential growth in realizing that ultimately people, for Hope is Alive at least, people want to see what the impact is. So they want to hear the stories of the people in the program. And so if this is a business, they want to hear the stories of your customers. They want to see how it's impacting your organization or church, your members or whatever. Yeah. And so I'm the face or the vision, but really what I'm doing now, as opposed to telling my story, is I'm telling our people's story. Over and over and over again. Yeah. They know and expect me to say all the right things or tell my story, but they want to see, how is this impacting Jeremy, right? How is this impacting Chelsea? How is this impacting Blake? And telling those stories, understanding that my audience maybe wants to connect with a certain type of resident that might relate to them or might be like their son or their daughter or their brother or father. And trying to find that story and showing them, hey, this is impacting somebody that's really relatable to you. Yeah. So it's got to be specific to your audience. Yeah. That's a huge thing people miss. Yeah. You got to understand who you're talking to.
So when I start casting vision, is there some things that I can start noticing to say, hey, you're getting better at this? Is there something that you would say, or is there no real way of kind of determining that?
Well, I think the proof's always in the fruit. And so what's the fruit of those those vision casting moments, your meetings.
Yeah.
And so if you're not tracking those, you'll never know. And so
Yeah.
you should be tracking every meeting you have.
Yeah.
And of course, the follow up to those meetings and the notes from those meetings
Yeah.
and all those things, and understanding, did this produce fruit?
Yeah.
End of the day, is there ROI on this?
Yeah.
And if there is, I think you can tangibly see that I'm getting better at it. So what I was trying to say earlier is today we're seeing a lot of unique gifts. We're seeing a lot of unique partnerships. Obviously, we're seeing growth in geographically. Mm-hmm. And so I think those are good indicators that the vision is getting tighter. And also what I was saying is in our fundraisers or in our smaller vision casting meetings, why we believe we're seeing fruit is because those personal stories are impacting their hearts.
Good.
So that's, again, why you want to make sure your customers are telling your story for you. Your people are telling your story for you.
Yeah, your customers telling your story, meaning those who've come and were a part of the program, now they leave and they begin to tell the story.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so at any of our events, you're going to encounter a resident or a graduate of Hope is Alive. Mm-hmm. You're going to hear from me. First of all, I think vision has to be done in several different ways. I think you have to see it. I think you have to hear it. I think you have to actually feel it at times and experience it. And so at any of our events, we're trying to do all those things. But ultimately, we're letting the resident or the customer, if you will, tell the story of what this program has done for them.
Yeah, that's good. Now, you mentioned events, and I was going to talk to a little bit about events because you all have done an amazing job with hosting events and bringing people in to cash that vision, so people can see the stories in person. They can touch it, they can smell it, they can feel it. Talk about event planning and how many hours goes into an event like Night of Hope.
Sure.
And kind of just tell maybe a little bit of like when Night of Hope started and why.
Yeah.
And then talk about the back end of that, because I don't think people realize what goes into making an event happen.
Unbelievable. Here's the deal. People don't realize how much time goes into making an event well or intentional or covering the details. A lot of people do events really, really poorly.
Yeah.
And there's nothing that will hurt you more, I believe, than doing something poorly.
Yeah.
And then walking in and not having all the bases covered. Now, I'm very OCD when it comes to events, very much a controller. And so we work through all the details, all the timelines. But as far as Night of Hope goes, I just had a vision that there was so many people in our community that needed hope, just very specifically and generally. And that there were a lot of people that if you had a mass event would come and want to get education as to how to, I think early on, how to help their kid, right? That was our audience. It was moms and dads of addicts. So how do I help my kid? So that was the initial idea. So I said, well, we'll host an event. We'll have some speakers come that will be captivating. There'll be some big names in Oklahoma. And so I think it was August of 13 when we did our first one. And we had like 450 people there, which was actually a really great crowd. Blew me away. But we found something that was needed from the community. You know, they were hungry for education and hope around this specific topic, and brought somebody in that was captivating. But those began to cycle every year. We'd do a couple, even sometimes in other towns. But I'm telling you, Hetty, I would be in Starbucks 6 months, 8 months, 10 months out. Yeah. And God will be giving me the vision of what the next one is. And I'd be thinking about what I want to see, what I want people to feel. So I start thinking about what do I want people to feel from the moment they get to the pavement of the parking lot. Yes. You know, I always tell our volunteers, we're attacking their hearts from the moment they get out of their car. So we think about every experience from that, getting out of the car till getting back in their car. And literally, as far as planning goes, to answer your question, it takes hours and hours, weeks and weeks and weeks. We walk through every scenario and kind of build a system to harken back to that of what they're going to experience throughout that time. And we always lead up to a moving moment. So at the very end of all the Night of Hopes, you're going to have like a moment that you'll never forget. So not only will you have that feeling, emotional moment, you'll also take something away tangibly in your hand. So sometimes it's been a coin. One year we broke chains, and literally people came up and broke chains with bolt cutters, and they took a piece of the chain home. We've had cards that they've wrote on and come and dropped at the front. All kinds of different experiences. And I have people come to me all the time and say, man, I remember that moment. I remember that time. And so that's a personal thing for me. I'm a moment kind of guy. So I think about all those moments and what it might feel like. and understanding again who your audience will be at that time. And so I'm thinking about possibly doing another one. And so right now I'm thinking about all those things that we could do. But events are very critical, I think, early on for an organization to cast your net a little wider. And I think it's important to even understand that it's worth the investment early on financially, to go get a speaker, to go put on an event, and to try it. Because from those events, we grab emails, we grab exposure in the community. There's newspaper articles. There's so many things that happen. And so we've become a pretty event-driven organization, and we do 2 or 3 really big events, and we do them really, really well. We try to. And people know that when they come to a Hope is Alive event, it's going to be excellent, the very best that we can possibly do. We're not perfect, but we're going to try to cover every base. And it allows people to connect and volunteer with your organization, which is important too. So you have to have those on-ramps to let people connect, not just financially.
That's good. So understand. Okay, so I know that you got OCD. You're really all in on the event side of it, but I also know your wife helps out, and she has this experience.
Yeah, she's a former wedding planner.
Yes, event plan. Like, what was it like being able to work with her and bringing her on and helping?
I cast the vision. She makes it happen. I mean, there's just no way around that. Or I cast the vision. She makes it beautiful. All those things. And so, her background in just, vendor selection, small things that you wouldn't even understand. I wouldn't have walking into it. Table size, linens, centerpieces, just, stuff that I just didn't even think about. She does all those things. And she's, we're kind of the same person with this stuff. We're very detailed when it comes to an event, and we understand the experience of the event is very important. But any of the big, beautiful things, Allie's behind all of that. The things on the stage, she thinks about all that. So we're working on our next big events, Inspiring Lunch, coming up in April and May. And so tomorrow we'll sit down. We might be a little bit late on this, but we're about a month and a half out or so, and we'll cast the vision and talk, have a creative meeting, and throw stuff on the whiteboard and cast our vision around what we want to see on the stage, what's the theme of it, how will people interact with that, and Allie will be a huge part of that. So again, it's the right people. She had an incredible background in events, and so there hasn't been a single event that she hasn't been behind the scenes making it all happen.
Now, what is it like, just for people listening? You all are married, but you're both working together within the same organization. Like, what are some keys to being able to work with your spouse in that way?
Learn to turn it off. Which I'm preaching to myself. It's tough. But there has to be times on the weekends or even certain nights where you're just requiring yourself not to talk about it. I think there's a lot of fruit in what God has done in Allie and I being together and living this thing out together, but also know that if we're not careful, it can destroy us. And so we've got to have reserved times in our lives where we're not talking about it at all. And so I've got to really make sure I don't do that. I don't bring it up, because it can happen really naturally. You can start off with the right intentions, and it can lead right back into work. And I think you also have to realize, for me, one thing I've done is and learned through is that she is not me, and she's not a subordinate. She doesn't work for me. Org charts don't work when it comes to husbands and wives. We're on the same level. She oversees a team, and I oversee a team, and we really don't cross a whole lot day to day. A little bit here and there, but we've had to understand that we're not the same person, and that's okay. We're gonna run our teams differently. We're going to lead meetings differently. We're different people. And I think that's taken me a while to understand. And that's kind of just marriage 101. You can't change them into being who you are. You have to accept them for who they are and all their wonderful gifts. And that's been a big, I think, learning curve for both of us, is just letting each other stay in our own lanes and kind of leading in the ways that we see fit for our own personality.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, she's been a joy to see you all working together. Has been really cool, and I always like to see when couples can find that balance in doing life together as a couple, and then also running a great organization or business, because it is not easy. Now, you talked about checklists. I wanted to come back to checklists. Do you all have a checklist for putting your events together? Is there a literal check
for events,
checklist?
for opening new homes, for checking a new resident into the home on day one, the fundraising things that we talked about. Maybe it's just because I'm a simple-minded, kind of easy faith guy, but checklists make sense to me.
Yeah, no.
It just really works.
No, it's awesome. I was just thinking, I didn't know if that was something that, I know some organizations share their resources with other people. I didn't know if that was something like, for anybody who's listening that wants an idea of what a checklist could look like for events. I didn't know if that was something that y'all shared.
Yeah,
or
we
not.
could probably do that. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty detailed. It goes to everything, like I said, from linens to colors to event space to how much will it hold. We use a lot of vendors and a lot of even outside partner resources that come to our events and set up tables and all that. So,
now going back, you talking about reading.
Yeah.
You mentioned reading earlier. Now I know that you are also an author, and have written 3 books.
4.
4 books. Talk about, first of all, I just wanted to ask, like, coming up with the title of your book. What is that? Is there a checklist for that, or
no? I mean, Hope is Alive was pretty natural early on. So that's my first book, and it was about the same time I was starting the ministry, and I was really in on the phrase "Hope is Alive," obviously, and so it just made a lot of sense to me. Just very simply, I had no hope. I was a 50 pill a day drug addict with no future, nothing.
Yeah.
And I had this unbelievable resurgence of hope in my life, and that drove me to do what I'm doing today and to start these things and have a second chance at life. And so hope was really alive to me. And so that was the first title. And then the marketer inside of me probably came out, and the rest of my books have hope in them. Hope Changes Everything is a book about chasing your dreams. For what we call a normal person. And then the third book is for parents or loved ones of addicts, and it was written by my parents and I. It's called Finding Hope. And then the last one's called Hope Dealers, and it's just kind of chronicles 7 or 8 really cool stories of graduates of the Hope is Alive program, and parents of addicts as well that have come through tough stuff. And it's a great book just to be inspired by what people have overcome.
Nice. So let's go back to Hope is Alive. Was the book first or the organization? Which one was in
time?
Okay.
About the same time. So I was writing the book for about 6 months, and during that period, we were kind of planning and getting prepared to try to find a home and open this first home. I didn't step into the ministry with a bunch of checklists and SOPs and dreams. It was really more just stepping into a calling and
for sure,
and walking it out every day. But the book, I'll say, especially to this audience, I think the book was game changing for me. I wish I could tell you it was published by some big group and it's in all the Barnes and Nobles. It's not. I did it myself. I just self-published the thing. But that book became my business card. And it became like a credibility source. So every meeting I had, and I hustled hundreds of meetings, everybody got a book.
Yeah.
And if 10% of them read it, then they really got to know me. And they really got to know the person behind the ministry and all those things, and what I'd struggled with and overcome. And that book was transformational, I believe, in my life. And today we get all kinds of stories from people that are reading that first book, especially in prisons all over the country. It's really grown and taken kind of a life of its own in different realms. And even the other day, I had a great meeting with a business here in Oklahoma City that granted us an incredible amount of money. And I ran into them at Starbucks, and he said, "Hey, I really enjoy reading your book."
That's good.
And it was the Hope is Alive book that we put in the goodie bag, that he got.
Yeah.
And I'm just telling you, like, books really, I believe, for a certain audience, provide a sense of credibility and allows you to, in more detail, cast your vision. So,
how long did it take you to write it?
That one only took about 6 months because it was my story.
Yeah.
And your story should have rolled pretty well. And of course, I had an editor that helped me make it readable. I got like a C in English in high school. Okay, so I'm not the best writer, but I worked on it. And it was one of the greatest accomplishments, I think, of my life. I felt so good about saying I wrote a book. Yeah. Especially that first one. I wrote every single word of that book. Now, the editor helped rearrange some of those words. Yes. But I wrote every single word of that thing. Yeah. And that means so much to me. And so,
What did you package with the book? Like, you have the book. Now, was there a website? Was there Facebook page? Like, what did that look like
we had
to
a
get it
landing
out there?
page for the book early on that provided, a video that came with it, some promo stuff. It allowed me to go speak in different churches and different organizations. So I had something to sell or promote that helps financially and provides credibility as well. So yeah, the video, the website. Also wrote a handbook that went with it, and so people could walk through kind of a small group curriculum, if you will, with the book. And so folks like the Jesus House and different treatment centers ended up buying the handbook, and for years would use that with their patients. So they read the big book, and then they would go through the handbook together at the same time.
Now, was the handbook something you thought of while writing the book, or did that come later after writing the book?
It came just almost at the very tail end of it. So Hope is Alive, every chapter ended with an action. It ended with something for you to do. And it was kind of your guidebook, if you will. And then the handbook was just in more detail how to do this with a small group. And it had actually a facilitator's guide in it, and what songs to play and what items you might need. And I'll just tell the audience, like, I had no real reason to be doing this. This was not in demand. And no one was asking me to do this, okay?
For the book?
I mean, nobody was, clamoring for Lance Lane to write a book. But I'll just say that sometimes when God calls, you just have to say yes and trust and step out and begin to do things that might scare you and say yes to those opportunities because I really, really believe that book changed my life.
Yeah, in so many different ways.
And I think maybe I was just blind faith or naive, but I just tell everybody, and they say, "What are you doing?" I'm writing a book. Writing a book. Oh, really? Yeah. So, I'm writing a book, and you're gonna love it. And you're gonna want me to sign it when I give it to you. But that, I just bought as much as I possibly could afford. I gave a ton away, but it really, really has been helpful and game changing for me.
Talking about at the end of each chapter, these action steps.
Yeah, I believe in that.
Was that part of the original thought for the book, or was that something? I'm just trying to get people to help to think through, like, why would you have action steps at the end of each chapter? Like, what was that for?
Yeah, I think it drives the theme of the chapter into your heart, and it makes you do something. And so then, as a customer and a business person, it connects you more to that book. Like you're wanting to go back into it, or maybe you're wanting to go check out the website or go read these blogs. And so you can ask folks to go do things. It was small things. Like one of the chapters was about surrender. So I'd say, hey, write the word surrender on a big piece of paper or a flag and put it over your door frame. And when you walk out, slap that like a football player would slap, go play like a champion today. And just small things that would then put it in their lives. And so they're hearkening back throughout their day-to-day lives to this book that they're reading. So
that's good.
So every chapter had that.
Good. Now, is that something that you carried on through the other 3 books after that book?
Not as much. No. That one was just specifically written for addicts that were coming out of treatment centers or early on. Like if you have an addict or somebody that you love that's just freshly sober, that's the book for them. And it'll walk through very, very tangible things, practical applications in their life that will help them. It's not to compete with AA or Celebrate Recovery or anything like that. It's just the things that help me. Meeting great people like you. Just trying to find people that will pour into your lives. Saying yes to new opportunities. I guess it's written for addicts, but it's really written for anybody trying to get a bounce back in their life. And you can apply those tools.
So not every book that a person writes would need these action steps at the end of each chapter. So don't feel like, hey, I had action steps at the end of my first book. That doesn't mean that every book has to have that. No,
not at all. No, I didn't just follow that. That setup every time. But I do think, depending on your business and your organization, that those actions help people connect more to what's going on in the book. So today, all of our residents read that book, and it's a cool thing.
Good. Man, so good. So let me ask you a few, just some quick questions. My man, I stole some of these questions from Tim Ferriss. Do you listen to Tim Ferriss' podcast?
I don't.
Okay. Tim Ferriss, he has all these really smart people like yourself on his podcast, and so it's just a really good podcast to listen to, just to learn from some different folks. One of the questions that he asked is purchases of less than $100 that have most improved your life.
Oh my goodness. Oh wow. Probably wireless internet. So I don't know, I'm just trying to think. That little Wi-Fi box is critical. So
That's good.
I mean, for a hustler that's on the road a lot,
Yeah.
here's an example. I wrote that handbook
Uh-huh.
in the parking lot outside my daughter's dance studio
Oh, wow.
with a wireless internet box.
Wow.
Every Monday at 4:30 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
For like 6 weeks or 7 weeks. Instead of going somewhere else, I'd sit in my car and I'd write it, but I needed internet. So I know it's kind of a weird thing, but
No, that's good. That's good.
the box might not be less than 100, but the monthly subscription is only like $50.
No, I knew. Yeah. What's been your favorite failure? Like, what's one thing you're like, man, I'm so glad I failed at that.
Probably early on speaking. I mean, I was such a wreck, and I'm so thankful that I just did it. And, I would get up there and my head would start sweating like crazy. And I'm bald, so that's not easy to hide.
Yeah.
And then I get really embarrassed. But, man, I just pushed myself through it. And it made me get really better. I didn't realize how much preparation went into speaking. So sometimes I'd just, arrogantly just walk in there and start talking.
Yeah.
And those were not good experiences.
Yeah.
And so those were failures that made me get a whole lot better in preparation and prepared me for some of the opportunities that I would have later on down the road and in much bigger arenas with much more people watching and all that kind of stuff. And so I think that's been a really key thing, because now I'm speaking 2 or 3 times a week and having to prepare messages for different types of audiences.
Yeah.
Mainly there are residents now who, to me, is the most important audience for me. It's pouring back into these hundreds of folks in our homes. But without failing and stumbling out the gate, well, first of all, without saying yes to things that are going to really scare you, and then failing, I would have never been there.
Yeah, that's
and it's
good.
so easy to say no.
Yeah,
because
it is.
That scares me. I don't want to do that. And especially public speaking, people are always so afraid of it.
Yeah.
What
are some tips that you would give somebody who's prepping for a talk or a speech? Or
I think some basic things like outline. For me, I'm maybe a little bit weird in this, but I script a lot of things. So I will full on script every word.
Okay.
And sometimes
do you do that for all your talks?
I do that for a lot of my new talks.
Really?
Yes.
So you're typing out every.
Basically.
Do you take it with you?
I do.
Really?
Yeah, 5 or 6 pages worth of stuff. Now, I don't always have to do that. And if I've studied it really well, then I'm not sitting up there reading it.
Yes.
But for me, I know myself well enough to know that I can get really emotional and really fired up.
Yeah.
And if I can't go back to an anchor point, then I can get really off.
Yeah.
And so it just allows what I believe maybe the message to be more clear, to be communicated in an easier to listen to way or even watch way. And so, for me, I'm a full-on scripter. Yeah. And I know there's different methodologies. People do things differently.
Oh, yeah.
And I have an outline, of course, intro, points, story, personal stuff. But within that outline, I sometimes, and a lot of times, will script every single word.
Wow. Yeah, no, I know the people who do it and some people who don't. And then there's some people who just always winging it,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, no, that's good. And you find great people who are doing all those different things.
People also don't realize that those that are up there winging it and doing it really well have put in thousands of hours.
Yes. Yeah.
Or they're just crazy supernaturally gifted.
Yeah.
But most of the time,
yeah,
they put in thousands of hours.
Yeah.
And I think about the Gladwell book talking about the 10,000 hours
or
whatever that number is. I think it's the same way. Last year I told my story 101 times just in 1 year. I mean, time publicly in front of audiences. And I've done hundreds and hundreds before that. And so now today I can kind of step in and go on my story.
Oh, yeah.
But if it's something new, I'm not there.
Yeah.
Because I've done one thing so much
that
anything else I can kind of feel a little insecure about. So that's probably why I script.
Yeah. No, that's good. No, I like that. Talking about people who are naturally gifted and talented at something, it's I always think about those people and how they impact other people, because some people don't realize that they're gifted and naturally talented. Even in sports, like I don't think people realize that sometimes, the difference. And I don't know if I realized that until until you really play sports at a different level.
Yeah.
Like going from junior high to high school, whatever the case may be, and you play with somebody and you know them personally, like this person doesn't even work out.
Exactly.
You know, like
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's like the guy that's just benching 225 in 8th grade. Like, that's not normal.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it gives these people this false sense of like you don't have to work to do it. Like I remember Allen Iverson talking about practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like practice, really? We talking about practice? Like Allen Iverson probably could go play basketball
Yep.
in the middle, you know, in his sleep.
Yep.
You know, and be better than majority of everybody else. So when he's talking about practice, which is even crazier though, that he was at the NBA level and was like, practice.
I know. It's nuts.
That is nuts. That's freakish nuts, but it's good. What is something absurd that you love doing? What is something
Absurd?
Yeah, like something you love doing. You feel like everybody else would think that's just
I watch a lot of documentaries.
yeah, that's probably absurd.
Yeah, I mean a lot. I found out a lot of drug addicts watch a lot of documentaries. I know, it's really weird.
What is that about?
I don't know, especially opiate addicts. There's something about us going into another world and diving deep into that. And so I watch like 2 or 3 documentaries a week. Maybe it's because I'm a storyteller, or maybe I like to escape reality and I can't use drugs anymore. I don't know, but I do love documentaries, and so it's really hard to find something I haven't watched. I'm on the road too a lot, so I get some opportunity to do that. But I watched Free Solo a couple weeks ago about Alex Honnold, who climbed the mountain without a rope. And it's one of the most amazing documentaries. I was sweating profusely watching it. But I love documentaries, and I always have. So maybe that's one of those things.
That's good. What advice would you give me for succeeding? You like, Hetty, in order to succeed, this is what you need to do.
I think it's things that me and you have talked about all the time, and that you teach very well in your curriculums and your go-in and workshops and different things like that. And I'll basically just echo you because you taught me these things. And it's about being around the right people and being willing to ask people to help you. I think people most of the time are really afraid to ask. My wife will tell me that I'm like the craziest asker ever because I will ask people to do whatever. But I know that's my mission in life. And if I can't do it, I need somebody else to help me do it. And I'm not afraid to ask. So ask people to help you.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid of them saying no. It's the worst thing they can do. Most of the time they'll either say yes or say, I can't do that, but I can do this. And you can take that. So around the right people, be willing to ask them for help. And I think one of your things that really helped me is find just the top 5 things that are going to make you really successful. What are those right things? And just do those. So many people overcomplicate so many things. At the end of the day, what are those 5 things that you need to be doing, and try to do those. I'm trying to give those the most time every day, the most attention, study them, understand them, learn about them, and do them over and over and over again.
That's good. Last question. You have one social media post, and everybody in the world on social media, which is a lot of people, I think there's 1 billion or something people on Facebook, is guaranteed to see your post. What does it say?
Hope is alive.
Come on, ladies and gentlemen. My man Lance Lane just spent an hour with us, just giving us all sorts of goodness. As you know, I love to sit down with people and have conversations with them to get their story out there, because I believe that when people share their story, we learn from them, we're inspired by them, we connect with them. And when we connect with them, I hope it leads to growing a community, because I believe that community wins. Lance, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Enjoyed it.
For being here with me. And remember, good people, go win.